So during the year, I prune a bunch of my plants. It helps with airflow and keeps things from getting powdery mildew because of our humidities. One thing I do a lot of is composting. A lot that comes out of my garden that we don't eat and the chickens don't eat. This bin has already broke down mostly. So by adding more green nitrogen, it's going to help it finish breaking down. So I just shove all the green in the middle and cover it back up. I also pruned my tomatoes. And I don't know if anyone's ever used these clips from the Dollar Tree, but they seem to be very helpful. So today has been a very hot day today. Been getting a lot of work done. I got my 2 garden beds amended. It took 3 wheelbarrow loads of compost and 1 wheelbarrow full of composted pig poop. And if you're on the fence about getting a pet pig and you have a garden, pigs are very useful in the garden. I also got the last of the rutabagas pulled up today. So not only will we be eating those for supper, but the pigs, chickens, and ducks had those for lunch. Also for supper, we're going to be having some squash and beans because there's so many and they're already ready to be picked. I can't believe it. But this is one of the beds I mulched and amended today. Like I said, it should have been done like before I planted, but I'm human. And clearly I make lots of mistakes. And this is the second bed I amended. Only had to do half of this one. And I put extra at the front of this bed where that one tomato didn't make it. But the one right beside it is doing great, so maybe it wasn't blight. So like I've said before, I've been gardening for quite a few years. However, when I first started gardening, I only grew the basics. I grew red tomatoes, large and cherry, a few peppers, some squash, zucchini, and cucumbers. And that was the majority of my summer garden. However, like every year since, I have tried to expand my garden so that I could grow more varieties of things and more things in general. When you start eating a bunch of things that you grow, you realize how much food like your family actually eats. And like I have come to realize there is absolutely no way I would be able to supply my family with all of their vegetables and fruits. But it seems like every year I add on 2 beds and I'm like, this will be enough. Like, this is all the space I need. And then it isn't a few months later and I'm already talking about adding next year's additions. Gardening in raised beds, it's kind of like the equivalent of chicken math. So, since I was sick last week, everything in here just kind of got neglected. And my kale has completely disappeared. But my basil looks good, and my peppermint. But even though things get neglected, some things still seem to produce. These are my ground cherries. And these poor cherry tomatoes that I didn't have room for are starting to bloom. But it looks like next week I will be planting out my peppers. Two days later, more beans and a squash.